You know, it's funny, a few weeks ago I saw a CLS class here in town, and I don't see them too often. It's a strange little vehicle that Mercedes came out with quite a while ago. It sits in between more or less an E-Class and an S-Class because it is a four-door version of a two-door car, which is essentially the two-door version of a four-door car. It's kind of like the E-Class Coupé that happens to have four doors. That's the best way to explain it. But I was thinking about it and I thought, I don't really see them too often. So I was checking on Auto Trader and Kijiji Autos to see what was available, and they are pretty pricey. It's not easy to get into one. And then this one came up as one that I could test on the press fleet. This, my friends, is a 2022 Mercedes-AMG CLS 53 4matic Plus Coupé, and I am pretty impressed with it. Now, we don't have any pricing for the US. As of right now, you really cannot buy one of these in the States. You can only get the CLS 450. But here in Canada, the way that this is configured is just under $118,000, which is quite a bit. So what do you get with this? Well, there is no 63 AMG at this time, so this is the top-end model sold here in North America. It comes with a 3-liter M256 inline-6 engine with the Mercedes EQ boost system, producing up to 429 horsepower, 384 pound-feet of torque, and has a 0 to 100 kilometer time of 4.5 seconds, which is pretty good for a vehicle of this size. Now, like I said, it's sort of like the coupe version of a four-door, two-door vehicle, whatever you want to call it. It is very similar in shape and design to a CLA. The new CLA class, which we haven't actually had a chance to try yet, has a very similar rear end, but obviously this is much bigger. You have a lot more space in the back seat, and up front it is pretty comfortable for a big guy like me. Now, there's a lot of packages that you can get on this vehicle. You could go up to about $137,000 Canadian. So ours is well equipped with the stuff that you're going to need every day, but you can definitely get it a lot more expensive. But some of the important things to note: this vehicle has the AMG Speed Shift 9G automatic transmission, which works very well. We also have the AMG Ride Control Plus and the AMG Performance 4matic Plus system. So you've got four-wheel drive all the time when you need it, but it does have a more performance edge to it, giving you a much more enjoyable experience if you do take this on the track. Now, ours here comes with the Edition 429 for the amount of horsepower that this vehicle has. You get the AMG Night Package, the darkened front grille, 20-inch AMG 5 twin-spoke matte black rims, and black badging. But this vehicle doesn't have any badging. It has all been removed except for the front and rear Mercedes badges. Why is that? Well, because this vehicle was used for something pretty important a couple weeks ago, and the vehicle was wrapped for a special driver. In fact, that special driver happened to be competing in the Canadian Grand Prix of the Formula One World Championship. Pointing at the hat of who that driver was. That's right, my friends. This is the vehicle that Lewis Hamilton drove here in Montreal, which is pretty spectacular. So I am driving what Lewis Hamilton has driven, and I have to say, it feels like a podium finish. So that's why there are no badges on this, and I actually do like it. Even though this is the AMG, you kind of do want people to know that you are driving that AMG version, since for the most part, aside from the grille and the wheels and stuff, it looks more or less like a regular CLS. I do like the fact that it has been debadged, gives it a clean look. Now, the badges will go back on it, but because I got into this so quickly after the Grand Prix, they haven't had a chance to put everything back together. So you would normally have a dark set of badges on the back, but even the Mercedes badge on the trunk, which holds the camera, is darkened, and I like it. It's got this really nice look to it that makes it feel a little bit special. Now, we do have a lot of other features and options on this vehicle. As I said, it's pretty well equipped. We have the Bengal Red and black Nappa leather interior with the Alcantara headliner and Alcantara AMG steering wheel, which is very nice. We also have the premium packages, head-up display, the intelligent drive system, the AMG driver's package, and the AMG track package. Now, the driver's package and track package add some goodies to this vehicle. So, for example, we do have the race mode on this, which is an enhancement over the Sport Plus that you would get. However, we don't have the AMG track pace. That adds things like actual map data for tracks around the world. And there really aren't any here in Canada, so it makes sense for Mercedes to have skipped that option when it comes to this press vehicle. But for the most part, this is very well equipped for what you'd be looking at a new CLS. Now, I have heard that the CLS 63 AMG will be coming back at some point, and it will be a real riot of a vehicle. But even with this, the 3-liter inline-6 with the EQ boost system does perform very well. Yeah, it's not a full AMG, the handcrafted engine, that's not this, it's just a AMG tuned one, if that. But it is still a fun vehicle to drive around. So we're going to get behind it, we're going to talk about how it performs, drives, and handles, and everything else that you need to know if you're in the market for a 2022 Mercedes-AMG CLS 53. All right, friends, let's talk about the fuel economy in our CLS 53. I completed my 100 kilometer test loop in Sport Plus mode in 9.6 liters per 100 kilometers. Yes, that's right. I did it in Sport Plus mode because I just don't want to drive it in normal mode, in comfort mode. I want to have some fun with it. Since I've only got it for a week, I want to do it my way. So yeah, the fuel economy would be a little bit better if you weren't driving it all the time in sport mode. You can change the dynamic mode into, I guess, comfort if you don't want to have fun. But we do have the race mode. Now the race mode, the only real difference that it shows on my screen here is it changes the engine output into race mode. So we'll see how that goes. I also have flappy paddles on, so we can have fun with that. But I will be talking about how this car is in a couple minutes to drive. But I want to talk about some of the other things that I think are important if you're in the market for a car like this. As I usually do with any of these more enthusiast grade vehicles, I'll post about it on the internet, whether it's on my Instagram page or on Reddit. The R Mercedes-Benz subreddit is pretty popular with, obviously, the Mercedes enthusiasts out there. And when I posted this, they thought it was a CLA. And you could definitely confuse this with the CLA, the E-Class, the C-Class, even an S-Class these days. I mean, the problem with Mercedes is everything looks identical. And there's a distinction between how their old design language was similar, but now it really is identical. Because if you think back, especially the cars that we've done a lot on, you know, the 90s and 2000s era vehicles from Mercedes-Benz, yes, the C and S classes had very distinctive features between the two to make it part of the same family, but they were ultimately different. You could see the differences in the taillights or the grills or the headlights, the fog lights, things like that. It made a difference when you were looking at it from almost any angle. But with this generation, they're basically the same. Like, not just similar, they're the same front end. I mean, the headlights, at least with the previous design language, if you had like an S-Class, you had 3 strips of LED lights for your daytime running lights. The E-Class had 2, the C-Class had 1, and then the other classes kind of had different things. But I mean, they're all sort of this boomerang. It's hard to tell. So I mean, if you do compare this to a CLA, aside from the obvious size difference, on first glance they are difficult to tell apart. And then especially when you have a vehicle like this that is debadged, not only is it difficult to tell what the actual vehicle is, but the designation on it too, because it does sort of blend in. I mean, yes, you've got the AMG grille on the front, but unless you were an enthusiast, you probably wouldn't pick up on that compared to a regular CLS 450 unless you had them side by side. So it depends on what you're going for. Obviously the debadge look works in some places like Europe, not so much here. People like to keep their badges on, but it'll work out however you like. It doesn't really matter because this car would not come this way from the factory. We just have a special case with it here. Now, one thing I do want to talk about too is getting in and out of the vehicle. It is slightly different. Yeah, I've talked about it before when we did things like the BMW 5 Series, that I feel that this era of vehicles has just got weird dimensions. And same thing with this. While the seating position here is pretty good for me, I do sit very low, and it is kind of hard to see, you know, out the top of the window. If I'm looking at, say, a menu board at Tim Hortons, it's a little high up. But when I get in and out of the vehicle, it does feel more like a coupe. It's this weird, for me at least, because I'm big, it does feel kind of weird getting in and out of it just because of the way the car's set up. It does have frameless doors, so that would make it easier in some ways, but it is slightly difficult. And plus in the back seat, I don't fit, not just because I'm big, but like the height. I sat in the back to film the B-roll here, and my head was crooked the whole time. So you're not buying this car because you're gonna put 5 people in it, which you can now. The CLS always was a 4x4 kind of thing. You can only have 4 people in the vehicle. You can get a 3rd zone climate if you upgrade to it, but you can fit 5 people. I just don't see why you would. I mean, this car is, again, more for the coupe. If you needed to throw somebody in the back seat, it's a little bit easier. So in my particular situation with a kid, it works out pretty well. But that will be something that you'll notice, that getting in and out is a little different, but you should know that going into it because it isn't your traditional E-Class, which is what this would be competing essentially directly with. Now, I have opted to put the vehicle back into automatic shifting mode for what we're about to do because I do feel that I do have a little issue when it comes to actually launching these vehicles and shifting. The car does it best. There's no doubt about it, especially with a dual clutch like this. It is the best way to do it. So we're going to go into a nice launch mode here. Oh, and we're off. It's nice and quick. 100. Not bad at all. Mercedes says 4.5 seconds. That might be a little bit slower than that because we aren't in launch control mode, just because the car hasn't warmed up, the tires aren't warm enough. We're not in ideal conditions yet, but it does get the job done. I think the people who are going to be buying this want something that is enjoyable to drive, sounds good, feels good on the road. It is surprisingly smooth on the roads, especially compared to my own C-Class, which I know are quite a difference in terms of the level of vehicles there, but this is pretty smooth on the road. It's quiet as well, right? Hear basically nothing of the outside world as you're going along, but you do hear the exhaust, which I like. Oh yeah, I mean, love it. I love it. When I had the E53 AMG as well as the GLE 53, I've driven pretty much everything now with a 53 badge. Oh, I just love that exhaust. It sounds so good. You get the little firecracker coming out of the back. It's got nice sounds to it, not over the top. It's not gonna wake up your neighbors if you're waking up and going out to work early in the morning. It's perfect for just really a good daily driver, and that's what I like about this vehicle. But if you were worried that there was no CLS 63 in 2022, do not worry. While this is a little bit more environmentally friendly, you are still going to have just as much fun as you would in this vehicle as you would if you were to go out and buy, say, a 2014 CLS 63 on the used market. Yes, this is going to be a whole lot more, but it is hard to fault the interior on the Mercedes-Benz. Everything works well. The carbon fiber, I like it. We've got pretty much all the features that you would want. Yeah, you got the Burmester audio. You can upgrade that to an even better one. Heated steering wheel, ventilated and heated front seats, heated rear seats. I mean, the list goes on and on. There is a lot to like when it comes to this vehicle. So good job, Mercedes-Benz, as I imagined you would. You know, if I were to compare this directly to something like the BMW M850i that we drove not too long ago, the four-door coupe thing, I would probably take the Mercedes-Benz, because at least this isn't trying to be something that it isn't. We've talked about how the 8 Series really is just a 6 Series. But when it comes to the CLS, it has always sort of been this kind of vehicle. Even though the older ones looked like a piece of fish and you were about to cut open, at least this one has sort of changed the proportions just enough to make it a little bit more appealing for me. But if you have any questions about this episode of Test Drive on this 2022 Mercedes-AMG CLS 53 4matic Plus four-door coupe, please let me know in the comments below. I do try to get back to everybody, and give a thumbs up to the video if you liked it, and consider subscribing to this channel for more content. Until next time, thanks for watching, and take care.